This is The Headliners in Conversation with actor and writer Atra Asdou, 2018 National Youth Poet Laureate Pat Frazier, storyteller Nestor the Boss Gomez, musician and artist Kaivyn Lael, author and editor Kathleen Rooney, and artist and comic illustrator Ashley A. Woods. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some questions.
And I can start us off there. So my name's Finley Williams, by the way. As you can see, I'm like Cielo, one of the teen facilitators here. As you all know, these are tumultuous times. There's the Black Lives Matter protests against police brutality. We are in the midst of an election right now. Coronavirus cases are rising across America. And in these times, the phrase silence is compliance has sort of come into the vogue again. And so we want to know from you guys, what is the duty of a creator, if any, to make political and social statements with their art? And I think you all can see one another, so just unmute at will, but try not to talk over each other so we can hear everyone.
I'll start. I love this question because I love saying that no matter what your art is about, it's political. And that's that. I feel like there is no real duty. I feel like, especially as people of color, as Black people, as Indigenous people, our duties are to rest and to live and to be here. But if you're writing, if you're making any art, the duty is of the politics is already in it. I would say.
I would like to say, hello, can you hear me? Yes, I think so. So I would like to say, as a storyteller, it's important to tell your story so the people don't tell it for you, so the people don't demonize and criminalize your community. And as marginalized communities, our lives, our survival is always going to be political. So if our own survival is political, why can't our art be political as well?
And going off of that, oh, you go ahead, Kaivyn.
Oh, thank you. As an artist, for all of my media, the beginning of my bio says controversial. I always make sure that there's a disclaimer that I'm controversial because everything that I publish is for my audience. And so I'm never releasing well, I'm an entertainer, I'm a musician, so I'm never releasing music so that it's not controversial or not political. I always want to say something. I always want to mean something. And the more that my fans can relate to what I'm talking about, the better it is as a musician and as an artist and just as a creator in general. And so, yeah.
As an actor, comedian, and writer, anytime I act, I'm always cast in the world of someone who's written me into something. And that often reflects the perspective that they have on me. So it's going with what their idea of who I should be is. So as a comedian, I tear down power. And as a writer, I make space for myself to tell, like Nestor said, tell my story from my perspective and making my own room for when it's not given.
Well, I feel like as an artist, it's important to illustrate the voice and the conversation of the times. And it's also, art is a great source of strength and inspiration for the everyday common people. So as artists, we are the greater people's voices.
I would say something similar. I think my art itself is trying to elevate perspectives that we maybe haven't heard before. And my most recent book is partly told from the perspective of a pigeon and partly told from the perspective of a gay World War I soldier. And I haven't been either one, so I tried to carefully represent their stories. But I would also say that something I think a lot about as an artist and a book reviewer is trying to use my position as a critic and also my privilege as a white person to try to amplify voices that might not have always been at the front of the line. So I try when I'm being offered books to review to sort of prioritize people who I don't see being covered as much as they probably ought to be for various reasons.
So the next question is, how has the pandemic affected you artistically? Do you believe that it has increased your or created a lack of inspiration? Has it impacted your motivation? And have you made any quarantine inspired art, or has it, how has it inspired you?
Personally, not much has changed for me. I think to work in comics, you're constantly isolated in a way because you're just chained to your desk. So you have to really, really love to draw, and you really have to love art to be an artist. My path is as an illustrator and comic book artist, but whatever your art is, that takes a lot of dedication and focus. And so for people like us on this panel who have already, we're walking this path and we're living this life. I can't speak for the others, but I would imagine, like for myself, not much has changed. But it's definitely a great time for growth. So with that, the last part of my answer is I have made more time to draw what I want to draw. In the recent years, I haven't had the opportunity to do that because I've been focused on clientele work. So this year of 2020 is definitely a good opportunity for a reset and also to slow down. And for me, I went back to the beginning, meaning, whatever inspired me as a child or in my adolescence, even in my younger years, like in college and high school. Right now, at this point in my chapter, I'm just going back to the beginning, and that's where I'm drawing my inspiration, and that's how I'm continuing to, move forward.
For me, as a singer or an entertainer, it's been a little rough since COVID hit. When I say I'm an entertainer, I mean that to the fullest. So most of my work is done on stage and not in the studio. I love to connect with my fans. I love to be in your face. If you've ever seen a video of me with my performing, I'm big on crowd interaction. And so not being able to pull inspiration from the outside world or being able to hear ideas from my fans as I'm seeing them in person and meeting them in person like I normally do, it's been pretty tough. On the flip side though, I've gotten to spend a lot of time with myself as a young person who's just settling into adulthood, transitioning from being a minor to now being old enough to do things on my own. I'm away from my family completely. I'm away from all of my friends. I just moved to a new state. So I've really gotten a chance to like sit down and get to know myself. And so it's pushed a lot of creativity out, and I'm watching the manifestation of all of my words and all of my thoughts come into fruition. So it's been half and half. I really cannot wait to get back into the world so that things like this can be done amongst the people, because I just love people and I love to connect. But like I said, yeah, I've gotten to know myself a lot, and I'm still working.
If I may say, for me, COVID has changed the way that I perform, because as a storyteller, I used to go out to venues, to restaurants, to places to tell stories in front of a live audience, and now I can't do that anymore. However, because of all the virtual shows, I have been able to go to places I couldn't have gone in a long time, because I'm not a famous person, I'm just a Chicago person. So I have been able to tell stories in England, in almost all 50 states of the nation, where before somebody had to invite me to go to England, fly me, pay for my hotel. People were not going to do that, hopefully in the future. But now I could just log into a Zoom virtual show. I'm like, boom, I'm in England. And people are listening to my stories, people who never listened to them before. So it has provided me with a way to expand myself at the same time that it has forced me to stay at home. So that's the good and the bad. And I have written new material, COVID related, because as an artist, and it's an honor to be called an artist among all of you guys, because you guys are fabulous. I don't know what I'm doing here, but it has inspired me because I have written stories. I wrote a story that is basically a comparison of being separated from my family as my mother and as my parents immigrated to the United States and left us in Guatemala, and how now COVID has separated the families as well. So I wrote a story about that. So COVID inspired me to do things, and it has helped me to expand my my reach of my stories. I do hope that we get over COVID, because it's not the same thing than telling a story to a live audience and listening to the reaction and be like, oh yeah, it is funny what I wrote, rather than be like, I wonder if it's funny. So yeah, there's that energy, there's that something that the audience give you when you're on the stage, and it's as much as you give to them as much as you receive from them, and it's not the same thing doing it on a virtual show.
I would agree. I think piggybacking off of some of what Nestor said, one of the things that's changed for me is I do this collective of poets called Poems While You Wait, and it's a team of poets and our typewriters, and we go all over the city to different events in different neighborhoods and different institutions and provide unexpected poems. So how it works is if you come up to us and see us in our typewriters, you can give us $5, which goes to a nonprofit, and a topic. Like you could say COVID or whatever, and we would write you a poem on our typewriters like in 5-10 minutes. And we can't obviously do that now because we can't be out among people. And I would also, I think a lot of people have already said, I really miss that face-to-face interaction, because it is that feedback loop of energy that you give and you get. So we miss that, but we've kind of pivoted to doing it online. So we're doing remote Poems While You Wait, and kind of, Nestor, like you're saying, we're able, before it was honestly a Chicago thing, and maybe if you were a tourist, you could get a poem. But now, I mean, just this week, I wrote a poem for a guy who lives in India. He wanted a love poem for his girlfriend, Pooja, who he just fell in love with. They're 20, they're so in love. So I wrote a poem for him. So I wish I could have met him face to face, but I wouldn't have got to write for him at all. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what everybody said. I second that, especially just not being able to be around community. I'm a Libra, like I need people around me. I don't know what Zoom is, like I hate technology. So this is not my preferred form of art making, but what I will say that I've appreciated about this whole tumultuous moment is just the fact that we get time to rest, if not focus on the things that we couldn't focus on before. So for me, for instance, I get to be a student of art. Like I'm only 22 years old. For so much of my career, I've just had to produce and produce and produce and give and give and give art in order to like keep a roof over my head, to make the money that I need to make to pay my rent. But because of Corona, and because like one, mutual aid efforts have developed so much, like the future is mutual aid. Like I've been able to survive as a Black trans lesbian on mutual aid and study the things I want to study as an artist. So I feel like for me, it's definitely taking me inward, to becoming more of a student of art. Even though I go to art school, I get to study the things I actually want to study. Like I've created whole syllabi for myself, which I would not have had time to do had there not been this pandemic. I think ultimately we just get to like reimagine what art looks like in a world that is not a capitalistic republic society. And that's super exciting, I think.
Yeah, I agree with the full spectrum of what's been said already. Like Nestor and like Kathleen and like Kaivyn mentioned, like I come from a live performance background where we were doing like 6 to 8 shows a week. So my life was in a small dark theater for the past 2 years, doing one review and then working on creating the next one, and like relying on audience feedback based off of improv scenes to go back and refine and create them into finalized sketch scenes. And then to have that all taken away was a relief, as dark as that sounds, because it was like, oh, now no one is racing towards something. There is no race. There is no running. We all have to pause. And there was comfort in that. Of course, discomfort everywhere else. I also do not like computer. I don't work an office job for a reason. So like, so it's been a huge learning curve where it's exciting for me to learn different media and different platforms digitally, but I find myself getting so exhausted because there is not a validation coming in. There is not an energy being fed toward my output, like with a live audience. So it's ups and downs, but for the first 6 months, 6 to 7 months of whatever month we're in, of quarantine, I couldn't create. I didn't find anything funny. Everything weighed really heavy on me. And then the idea of, oh no, am I broken because I can't create? I just had to do a lot of therapy and a lot of like realizing other mediums like painting or drawing or reading, going back to the basics like Ashley and Pat mentioned, like watching things I could input now versus having to output. I thought that was really well put, Pat.
I think it's interesting how you mentioned the whole self-validation and having to like bounce back and forth with people. Because I'm thinking back to either February or April, when I first met Nestor and Kathleen. And I remember we were sitting in the library and I was telling them, because of the nature of my work, how I'm always at my desk, that I wanted to communicate with people more and be more, I want to be able to tap in to myself and tell my story with much more ease. And it's almost like, you either use it or you lose it. And at that point in time, I was losing it. And so the way that I figured out that conundrum since way back, 8 months ago, 9 months ago now, is I think isolation and solitude, there's pros and cons to it. So I would speak on the pros because the cons are, I think, much more obvious, but the pros are that you're able to, I mentioned earlier, go back to the beginning. And when you reconnect to whatever's in your inner core, it helps you become more connected to yourself. And when you're connected to yourself, you're automatically connected to everyone else. And so I would say that's the difference between me back in February and me now, because I feel like now I'm speaking with much more ease where that wasn't the case.
I second that. Yeah. And especially doing work for a company versus myself, finding what I truly care about. I love that. I love the way you put it. Yeah, it brings on some empowerment, some form of empowerment in art.
Yeah. And then, I mean, as a person, like for me, with Lit Fest happening, what was supposed to happen in April, this was something that I was invited to perform at last year. And so I have my ChiTeen Lit Fest notebook, and I've been jotting notes for the past year and preparing for this one moment. And then I find out that it's all stripped away. I took a lot of time to go over things and like redo things and re-edit and retouch. And I was watching myself develop as an artist, but I was also finding myself disappointed in like the material that I was producing because it could not happen live, or it can't happen with the people. And I've never worked with a camera. I've never worked with lighting. I've never worked with anything technical. And so as a performer who's always dancing and singing, interacting with the audience, to be placed back at home and somebody say, do that same thing, but without the people, it's been a lot. So yeah, there are definitely pros and cons.
You guys have touched on this just a little bit already. I think this is exemplified in Nestor's point that usually you wouldn't be able to fly out to whatever state or whatever country, but now because we're in a virtual setting, the reach, the sphere of influence has suddenly expanded. And so we want to know from you guys, are you feeling more or less connected? And I know that's sort of a trick question, because it's a lot of ups and downs, like some of you were saying. But how have you seen the manifestation of being more connected as opposed to feeling less connected to your audiences, and how have you coped with that?
Since you mentioned me, I'm gonna answer that first. When I did my story about COVID and did a comparison between being separated from my family, that my parents immigrated to Chicago and left me and my siblings for several years in Guatemala, and then we were reunited, and how COVID has separated us. That I was able to build a bridge between my immigration story with the audience, because now they understand what it means to be separated from your family. Now they understand how difficult it is that you want to see somebody and you can't. And back then, when we were separated, there were no phones, there was no internet, so I couldn't call my mom and be like, "Hey, how you doing, mom?" Like, no, it was like I spent 6 months without even hearing her voice. And when I told people that, I like I wanted to hug her so badly, and for years I couldn't see her. People understood what it means in a much graded level that they would have been able to understand before COVID, because now everybody can relate to that. And that's what storytelling does. It helps us build bridges so we can relate to one another's stories and we can understand each other's struggles better.
Period. Can us panelists not have reactions? Because I don't see that down here, and I would like to clap.
Go ahead. That was amazing.
Yeah, that's very important. Thank you for that. I mean, I guess since I started talking, I will respond, but I'm like, I don't know. I haven't felt more connected, so I'm really interested to hear how you guys have felt more connected, because personally, I don't know, like I I feel like if we can be frank for a moment, it's harder to feel connected on a Zoom call. It's harder to feel connected
Yeah.
to people who you're looking at on a screen, who a lot of the times are people who you're not close with. So I'm curious. I'm really curious to hear what you guys say.
I've
For
actually
me, go ahead. You go
no, no,
ahead.
no. No, just in short, I've been reconnecting with older friends from school. So I've become more distant online, but with my friends in my personal life, I've been seeing them more. So I've been feeling connected in that way. Okay, I'm done.
For me, I would say the connection that I've gotten to get with my fans as a musician has been more on a personal level now that COVID has hit. I am, disclaimer, I am a very inconsistent person. And that's just, yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's not, I don't think it's negative. It's just a truth that I've come to realize with myself. And so, being that I don't have my team anymore and I can't say, do this and do that and do this and do that, it can be all left on me. And so, we just got the show together for the performance for tonight. And it was literally just me and my spouse. And we were like, how are we going to film a performance? How are we going to get lighting good? How are we going to do choreo? And so I was completely stripped of all of my celebrity status technology that I had at hand. And I really had to be myself. So now my social media goes from a post every day to a post every other week. And my fans are like, when is new music coming? When is a new performance coming? And I'm like, gosh, people, I don't know. I can't give you an answer. So I've definitely been able to like open up to my fans and like, hey, I'm a human being. I'm in college. I'm working, and I can do it when I can. This is my first love. This is my passion. This is my job, essentially. But the truth is, I am a human. And so that's the most connectivity that I've been able to get with my fans. And I think that that it's needed. It's important because I have celebrity idols and I have people that I praise and worship that are on a higher status than me. And so to even see them step down and become full out human beings and not be in the glamour realm it's pretty good. And so I've enjoyed that.
Yeah. On the note of like social media, I started like writing out for myself. Like I made a poetry account to again go back to my roots of like writing. I make goals for myself where it's like one quick dumb video every week as a comedian, like just putting out a sketch, even if it's an impression or if it took me 2 hours to edit a 5-minute video. It's going on my Insta. So in terms of like output, I've been using that to connect with people and to keep, and to also support my friends who do the same, who I'm seeing. So in that sense, it ends up feeling like, oh, the party's on social media now. Like it really does for me. I view it as it's a party. Like, oh, I'm seeing this person's thing. I'm hyping them. I'm liking this. I'm messaging them about how amazing their video was. Like, whereas before, if I was doing live performances and like just scrolling through, I wouldn't be as intentional or as active about really praising what people are doing that I'm enjoying. Even if I don't enjoy it, I know how hard it was to do. And so like praising them, letting them know that, like, you know, giving those affirmations. So I've shifted in that way of seeing like social media as the party room.
Yeah, I mean, kind of to build off the pros and cons, I tend to agree that this is less satisfying as a way to live, the isolation, but I think like through effort, and I think this idea of the routine, the post a day or setting yourself some kind of structure, like a thing that I did in April, right at the very beginning of this, when I think it was at its most confusing and most uncertain, I had a great experience that a former student of mine, because I teach at DePaul, but this is a student from mine from way back when I taught at Emerson College in Boston, when I was a brand new teacher. Like I was 24 and the student was 2 years younger than me. She was a senior. So it was like, I was all nervous then too, because I was like I didn't feel smarter than anyone. So I didn't feel like I should be in charge of the classroom. But the cool part of that was that I became friends with some of my students. And so Kimberly Southwick, I'll say her name, she runs a magazine called Gigantic Sequins, but April, as many of you know, is National Poetry Month. And there's the National Poetry Writing Month Challenge, where you agree to do one poem every day. And Kim set up this Google document for a bunch of us. There were several of us, some people I knew, some people who were strangers to me. And I mean, poets like to be dramatic, but it like saved my life to do a poem a day with these friends and strangers and this person from deep in my past who I knew and loved very much. And then also these new people. So I felt like I was connecting with the old, and also like, I don't know, you guys probably maybe have similar things. Like when you make a new friend during the pandemic, it feels like super extra plus 100 leveling up, because it's so hard to make a friend now. So I think stuff like that has been, you know, I wouldn't have done that if not for the pandemic, and it was exciting. And I ended up writing like a whole poetry manuscript, which speaking to the back to basics thing, I hadn't been writing my own poetry outside of Poems While You Wait in a while, because I've been focused on novels. So it was, you know, it was cool. It took a lot of effort, but it was possible.
I still think it's really sweet how you wrote that poem for the guy and his girlfriend.
Yeah, that was great. And he said he was going to come back to us. We actually came back a second time and said he was going to keep us for all his future poetry needs. And I was like, yes, on speed dial.
I want you guys to imagine yourselves like a year ago, and think about your daily routine, like what you did when you woke up, where you go, what you were producing, and think about like how it's changed. Not just because of also because of the pandemic, but also just like how you've changed as a person.
Well, for me, in one of our earlier questions, I had stated that not much has changed for me physically, but I've changed a lot personally, because my baseline personality is outgoing, but in recent years I've become much more serious because of the nature of the art world, the comic industry to be specific. So when you look at Twitter, I have a Twitter, but I'm not very active on there, nor am I very active on social media as a whole. I have a following, and I need to um, I need to be a better example as to how to communicate with your fan base. But I really like my privacy, and I really like my alone time, you know, in so many words. But overall, because of the nature of the business, it seeped into my own persona, and it caused me to take things a little bit too seriously. So this year, I've learned from going within that, you know, how do I say this? Because I want to, it's a lot. I just want to make it concise. Um, there's no need to really be impatient or feel like you're not in the right place. There's no reason to feel like, oh, I'm missing out, or I'm losing this, or it won't come, whatever it may be, or I'm not healing fast enough, you know. I'm trying to talk about everything in like one fell swoop. So I hope I'm making sense. I'll tell you guys, like I told one of my good friends the other day, the most important thing is to not put pressure on yourself. You just mentioned about, you know, touching base with your fans, and, you know, performing, and, you know, choreography and all of that, and how, you know, COVID made it impossible, you know, to do that. And I had a similar conversation with another artist friend of mine, where they were saying, oh, I feel all this pressure to post online every day to build my audience. And that was something that I felt myself this time last year. Like, I would, you know, monitor my numbers on my social media, and it was really affecting me. And that's never really been my a weakness of mine. I've always been somewhat confident for the most part, but social media really like seeped in there. And it's crazy because I was cognizant of what was happening in the moment. Like, I was aware of my mood changing just from being online. And it goes to show, like, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie. What's that new movie that came out on Netflix, y'all? The Social Experiment.
Social Dilemma.
Yeah, The Social Dilemma. If you guys haven't checked that out, definitely check that out. But they talk about the mechanics and how, you know, it's more than just dopamine. It's a lot more that goes into it. But in any case, what I'm trying to say is, this time last year, I was a lot more neurotic. And this year, I'm a lot more grounded, because I'm just not taking everything as seriously. And it's not that I don't recognize it's serious. I do, and I respect whatever it is to be serious. But the difference is, I let go of control, you know, a bit more. And, you know, you just chalk it up to like the ebbs and flow of life. And so in a lot of ways, this year, um, that was my difficulty this year. You know, overcoming yourself was like the biggest battle. So that's my answer.
This year for me, so last year, all of my friends and my fans know that I'm a busybody. And so this time last year, this year is 2020, last year is 2019. I graduated high school last year. I was supposed to graduate 2020. This would have been my senior year, but I graduated a year early. I was dealing with making sure I stayed on top of school to graduate my year early. I graduated with a lot of working credentials that I don't use because I'm a musician. And so I was graduating high school. I was working night shift at UPS, and then doing one summer Chicago. So I was working, I was in school and producing music. Since the pandemic has hit, I've only been able to drop like 2 or 3 songs. But last year, this time, I was just back to back producing them. it's not good for my fans that I haven't been able to produce as much content, and I haven't been really like, I'm not a social media person either. And so I would not be the person to continuously check the numbers or to go back and to double down on like if the people are watching me or what the people are saying as they're watching me. I'm like, I love it. Here y'all go. Whatever y'all think about it, it's there. So, you know, I'm not paying attention. I've been able to be patient with myself now. Last year, I got really stressed and really depressed. And I was noticing that instead of dealing with it or talking about it or coping with it, I would add on something to things that I need to get done. And so music had become a consistent flow of energy that I would be able to release. And I was writing my pain out and I was singing and performing my issues away. But I never really had time to sit down and think and get clarity about like my life in general. I was so focused on being Kaivyn Lael, and I was so focused on being celebrity me or being a superstar. I will go 2 and 3 months, and my friends would be like, "You haven't been outside to hang out in months, but we just see you perform a week ago. So where are you?" Now that COVID has hit and there is no fan interaction, I'm not able to be busybody. I really have to think about the songs that I'm writing. I really have to think about why I'm producing this content, what the pain is behind this. And while I'm, like I said, this is my job, while I'm working on the content and the creation, I'm also diluting what's been going on with my mind. I'm still healing myself from childhood trauma, and I'm coming into adulthood in my own home, in my own space to really be an adult. It's a journey, and I would have preferred it to happen this way. I'm not working in the world because I don't want to get COVID. I've been quarantined still. And so, yeah, I just really had time to focus on me as a person, and I've learned a lot about myself. And through these things, I've learned things about my old music and my old shows that I didn't know at first. And I'm going to use those same ideas to make things bigger and better for the next go round.
For me, things change and remain the same because I work in the mornings because my storytelling don't pay the bills. Uh, so I had to have a job that I had to work my 40 hours a week so I could pay my rent, I could pay my gas, I could pay my electricity, all my bills. And unfortunately enough that my company did not close because we are essential. We work for the electricity of Chicago. So it did not close. I did not lose my job. I did not lose any hours. But before, I used to go to work, come back, go to the gym, come back home, take a shower, and hit a storytelling event. Just like the comedians do. Looking for a club where I could go tell a story, looking for a bar where I could tell a story, come back home like at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, get up at 5 and go to work. And it was like every day, every day. And the day that I did not go storytelling, I would crash and fall asleep. So when COVID hit and my life went to like, from like, to like, what's going on now? And it took a while for me to start writing again because at first I was like, what I'm gonna write about when people are dying by the thousands, when so much things are going on. But then when COVID was used as an excuse to start discriminating harder against immigrants and keep them out because they were gonna bring COVID in, I was like, hell to the no. And I started writing again. And I started hitting all the clubs virtually. And like I said before, next thing I know, I'm in England telling stories. I'm in Australia telling stories. I'm like all over the place telling stories. I'm like, yes. So in the morning did not change because I'm still going to work. The afternoon changed and then went back to the same. The only thing different is that sometimes I used to drive to Madison or Milwaukee and do like a 2-hour drive to go tell a story. A 6-minute story used to take me 2 hours to drive. Be sitting in the audience for like 3 hours for a show, tell a 6-minute story, and then drive back home and come back home like at 2 o'clock in the morning and then go to work the next day. So now I don't have to drive. I could just be at home. And then when I'm done with my story, I'm like, hey, I'm going to bed now. So that makes things a lot easier. And I get a little bit more sleep than before.
I have a similar but opposite in that sense. Whereas before I was working for others. I was working for a theater company, and I was saying yes to everything. If my agent was like, hey, can you take off from the show to go do this audition or do this thing? I'd say, yeah, let me do it, let me do it, let me do it. Now I'm saying no to a lot of things because I don't want to catch COVID either. And it's not worth it to me to hawk a product for a couple thousand and risk my life. So it's put that into perspective. And in the way that Nestor, you mentioned the commute is better, right?
Yes.
But for me, it feels like I'm different in that home used to be my safe spot. So after I gave everything on stage and after I put out all my energy, I left it there. I'd drive home, decompress, or take the train or take a lift. And then I would come here and I could let it all go. Now
Take off
everything
your
in my
shoes,
house. Yeah, I have sometimes honestly during the winter months, I have this giant like sleeping bag of a coat, and I wouldn't make it to my bedroom. I would just, especially if it was like a tech week where we're 12 hours in a theater, I would just come inside, take my shoes off, just gonna lay on the ground for a few hours, and then wake up at like 6 a.m. Right in front of my door. So, but now like work, I saw a meme that was like, we're not working from home, we're living at work, which is how I feel, but I'm lucky enough and privileged enough that my work is art. So it feels like a very champagne problem to say like, oh my God, I have to have like a whole room. I've had to redo and reconfigure my life, but it also, in terms of like separating myself and finding time to recharge myself has been a challenge, which it was the same as last year, but at least I had a physical space to do that in last year, whereas this year I don't, or I have yet to find it.
Mm-hmm. Is it hard? Is it hard being a comedian in this era, in this day and age?
Personally, I don't ever think about it, so I don't know how to answer that question. But do you mean in terms of like the cancel culture and things like that, or like not wanting to say something? How do you mean?
Yeah, just like expressing yourself, not wanting to offend, but yeah.
I think my favorite comedians, even when I was a kid, like were people who were very political and like pushed boundaries. I will say comedy doesn't age well. The art form of comedy doesn't age well. There are very few things where you're like, wow, they were ahead of their time. And then we got over that time. And we're in a different time. But I think of them as like time capsules. But there are very few things that really outlast generations and that are still problems that people spoke to back then. So in that sense, I feel me as a person, I always try to be as genuine as possible, and I love using comedy to connect and ease people's worries and make them forget about whatever troubles they have. And also, if they feel, it's my goal and it's my MO to make people feel less alone through comedy by whatever means. So for me, it isn't difficult because that is my MO and intention first and foremost. But I do know what you're saying in that, like, for me, the difficulty comes in everybody's saying everything all the time. So what do I have to say, and how do I say it in a way that makes things better and not worse? So in that sense, yes, it is very difficult.
Yeah.
I was just gonna piggyback on what Ashley said at the beginning of the conversation. I really felt that about racing and about time. I would say the biggest difference for myself 1 year ago and myself today is that I have totally changed my relationship to time. Like now I understand that more than anything, time is on my side and time is not working against me in the ways that I thought it was. I have all this time to delve deeply into the things that I love and learning about the directors that I love and the poets that I love. And I don't have to, I don't know, I definitely have like my same dreams of like working at a production studio and getting enough money to make a film production building for young people in Chicago. But I know now that that can come much later when I'm ready instead of when I think it has to happen. And I don't know, I think I would just like wish that on every artist because I know we're all so scared of time and like, I don't know, especially with Corona and being in a pandemic, I feel like everything is so much more necessary to appreciate because we're all seeing how everything is fleeting and how everything can be temporary if we let it, and how like we can't hold grudges against people we love because tomorrow they very well may not be here. And so I'm just learning a lot more to like appreciate time, to take my time and to love my time, to not be in competition with time, to not be in arguments with time, but just to use it, and use it to the best of my ability as an artist while I'm here.
That is a lesson. Thank you.
I guess I haven't gone on this one yet. I would sort of say a similar thing. Like a year ago, I was much more frantic and like kind of attached to the capitalist treadmill of like, look busy, be productive. And, you know, busyness and productivity are just sort of these arbitrary metrics that I think like a lot of us, letting be imposed from outside me. And so now I'm listening more to like what's maybe a natural pace. And I think also a lucky thing that happened to me, I have this friend, Logan Berry, who runs the Runaways Theater Company. He's like a total weirdo in the best possible way. And he and I learned how to do transcendental meditation at the beginning of December. He kind of like pushed me. I was like curious and he was like, let's do the class together. And now I meditate twice a day, 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. I haven't missed it since I started in December. And so shout out to Logan Berry for getting me on that. And I think a year ago, I would have been like, I don't have 40 minutes a day. And I think that's silly. Like everyone has to take care of themselves. Artists have to take care of themselves. And like, you have 40 minutes a day to like take care of yourself.
So my Wi-Fi cut out. It was an emotional process, but I'm back. We were planning to ask individual questions, but you guys are all too interesting and you have too much to say, which we're grateful for. So we want to hop to this last question here, which is the mother load. What advice, briefly, because we have to wrap up soon, do you have for teen creators specifically during this time? How do you recommend documenting the period, and how can teens use tragedy, misfortune, current events to create art? Just hop in at your will.
I would say as a musician, because I've watched, as a music studier, I've watched music change the dynamic of how our world operates. From the beginning of time, with slavery, we used music to communicate with each other. Through the civil rights movement, when racial barriers started breaking, it was music that was bringing people together. And so living in a time like this, with like the election going on and the Black Lives Matter movement going on, and just the pandemic quarantine session that we've been living in, I've been accepting everything. And so as an artist, I've been noticing the world around me. I've been noticing my world as a person. And I've just been like taking inspiration from every aspect. Sometimes are harder than others with the world that we live in, and my personal life. Some things get harder and some things get stressful. And so I'm always writing that. I'm always thinking about it, and I'm always just making sure my brain and my heart can make sure there's enough capacity to be able to accept all things, because life goes on. And that's one of the songs that I'm performing tonight. But yeah, through my art, I've just been able to move past things. And I always encourage young writers, young artists, whether you want to do comedy, or you want to do music, or you want to do comics, or you want to be a storyteller, all those things require human experience. And so once you dive down into experiencing life, whether it's good or bad, it's up to you to make that decision and how you will react. And so my reaction is, when it's time to go out and march, I'm outside marching. When it's time to go out and protest, I'm outside protesting. When it's time to go vote, I'm voting. When it's time to speak up, I'm using my voice. I'm utilizing my platform. I am writing. I am speaking. And as a human, I'm being present, to know that I'm being present for my fans and my friends and my family, to know that I am living this. I'm a part.
Can I piggyback on that part about using your voice? because that really touched me. I used to stutter when I was a kid. I was undocumented and I couldn't speak English. So it took me a while to get over my stuttering. It took me a while to learn to speak English with a sexy Latino accent. And it took me 30 something years to become a citizen. And I finally voted on this past election. I finally have a voice. So using our voice is the most important thing. Just using our voice, because otherwise somebody's gonna talk for you, somebody's gonna sing for you, somebody's gonna draw for you, somebody's gonna make jokes about you. Use your voice in any way that you can. Just find your voice and use your voice. And even if it takes you a while, it took me almost 30 years to find my voice. So if you are able to find your voice now, you are blessed beyond as much as you can imagine. Just use your voice, find your voice, and use your voice.
Yes, yes to all of that. Yes, 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 yes. Adding on to everything that came before, um, follow what you find interesting and what makes you feel. Don't follow what other people are feeling, and don't get lost in what you think about what other people might want from you. When you're creating your art, you create it from a place that's within you, and you're bound to find someone else who relates to it, if it's not necessarily personal, but if you have an emotional reaction to something, and you ask yourself, all right, wow, this idea came along, don't doubt that it came along for you. It came along to you. It's for you. It's your idea. It's yours for a reason. If you don't feel like paying attention to it, like Nestor said, someone else is going to go off and write it. It's going to go off to someone else. They'll take it over. If whatever it is, follow it. When you get inspiration, write it down, draw it out. Whatever your medium is that you feel best services it. Just don't ignore it. Even if it leads to nothing, even if it's like, well, that was fun, but it doesn't really spark any joy or fun for me anymore, or any interest for me from where I've landed with it. At least you gave it something. At least you paid attention to it. Yeah, that's what I would say. And when there's a pause, when nothing is coming, it's okay. Try a different art form or just pause. It's all okay. That's what I would say.
Thank you for that. Just pause. Okay, advice. Something that's been irritating me as a film student is that for some reason, professors and also people who like speak about film and even poetry, because I'm here as a poet, but even poetry, there's a suggestion that some people are born with it and some people are born with these talents that other people just don't have. I personally think that's bullshit. I don't believe in that. I think if you study your shit, you can be just as good as that prodigy. If you study your shit, there is no hierarchy on who is better at this certain form of art or not if you're doing the work. So the advice I would say is to do the work. Like if you want to use a certain medium to tell whatever your story is or whatever you feel like your purpose in art is, just study that. And I definitely understand that that's hard because studying means access to the material to study. I definitely have come into I've definitely been privileged to go to a school where I can access an article that would otherwise cost $100 for me to read or something like that. But for instance, if you're a poet, study the people who you love, pay attention to them. Yeah, I think more than studying, just paying attention to the world around you and really placing the value in that is what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. I love paying attention. I think art is a very focused form of attention, like that the artist pays to the world and then also hopefully gets the audience to pay. And so building off everything, just very briefly, I think my advice is just keep your imagination, which might sound corny, but I mean that for yourself and your own interest, but also for the world, because I think we hear over and over again and like in this election and just in general, about what reality is, or that's not realistic, or live in the real world. And I would say I don't want to live in the real world. I want to imagine a better world. And I think artists are some of the people who can create that. So just don't let that imagination ever go, and don't let anyone ever tell you that you have to live in the real world.
Yeah, definitely. I would say indulge in escapism. There's nothing wrong with that because it fuels your imagination. Also, I would encourage younger folks to learn to be more self-reliant, um, physically and mentally. Now's the time to build your skills and plan your life around that. Gone are the days of your parents or society tells you to get your degree and then get your job and live the American dream. Like we all know that isn't true now. And I had just graduated college when the '08 recession had hit, and I was 22 at the time. So I learned my lesson, 12 or so years ago, and that was very devastating. So I understand what it's like to not have work for a prolonged period of time. It really does something to you deep inside. And so from that experience, I had learned to stop not doing, but working um, just random arbitrary jobs. And I started really investing in my skills. And at the time that I got my foot in the door in my career, I was selling beer at a grocery store, and I was 29 years old. Didn't really know where my life was going, even though I've always had a plan, but the plan was unraveling because, we're all spoon fed a lie, not to sound pessimistic, but, I think we know what it is now that we're dealing with. But the whole point, I'm saying all this to say, is what I learned back in '08 through 2012, I applied now, which is be more self-reliant, pay attention to what's going on around you, what people are saying, but also make up your own mind, because it has to make sense to you, and just act in logic. Try not to act out in your emotions, because there's a lot of people who are emotional right now, and there's reasons to be emotional, but just be grounded.
With the imagination statement that I heard, I also want to pick off of that a little bit. As artists or as people who create things for the general public to see, that's our job. We're left to be, excuse my language, the Looney Tunes who think of these outrageous things that won't happen. The Jordan Peels who creates movies that are unimaginably wicked, that you'd never think of these scenarios to happen, or Beyonce with Black is King, and being able to express my culture as an African person through song and through music videos and through dancing. All power to that statement, because without our imagination, without our creation, without our minds being able to put these things into perspective so that the human psyche can see it and receive it, it's by far the greatest power that we can have as artists and content creators.
I'm holding my iPad, so I can't clap.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's so amazing talking with you guys. You guys are all just perfect examples that you can be who you want to be, we can't really hear the audience, so I would like to give you guys a round of applause. It was amazing.
I think that's my cue. Thank you so much it was an honor to ask everyone questions.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate having you all so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, every powerhouse. Bye.